Welcome to Epilogue Podcast, the show where we discuss some stuff that happened on a different show ages ago which nobody really cares about anymore.
Hello, I'm Portponky.
And I'm LeBloc.
Today we are discussing Deep Space Nine, Season 5, Episode 13, For the Uniform. Sisko hunts down Eddington, but has to take extreme measures to capture him.
What do you think of this one upon rewatch?
This is the one where Sisko utilizes biological warfare to catch one guy.
And everyone says nothing and blindly follows orders.
Yep. All these previous podcasts where you've been saying, I think Sisko is a psychopath, and I've been trying to be impartial about it. Well, this is a massive, whopping piece of evidence on the psychopath pile.
This seals the deal.
Even Worf was shocked that he would do such a thing.
Even what directly precedes it is psychopathic. He decides, all right, I'll be a villain in order to solve this problem. And then he's kind of excited about it, and then that's what leads to his decision.
Yeah, I've not actually read Les Mis. Presumably, they use biological warfare in the end. That whole scene where they're discussing Les Mis was so clunky.
More so, well, I'm assuming you're talking about Sisko and Dax.
Yeah.
It's clunky on its own, but it's even worse because a lot of that is restating what was said already earlier between Eddington and Sisko. There's a guy who's obsessed with catching a guy. That's all we need to know, and we were told that already.
It sort of turns into Les Mis fanfic. Oh, do you really like it? Because we really like it too. That means Sisko really likes it.
You gotta do something with that lit major degree.
It's not even like this plot device is unique to Les Mis. Anyway, it's a fairly common plotline, like trying to catch the rapscallion.
I don't see what talking about Les Mis added. Well, I guess it made Sisko realize Eddington sees this as a narrative, and so he can manipulate him that way. But specifically citing Les Mis is kind of weird, and it makes the universe seem so small because they're, once again, drawing our attention to something that we know. But that's tempting to do because you can't just make up stuff all the time. Well, you could, but that runs the risk of alienating the audience.
If it would be boring for them to talk about a made-up book for 5 minutes, talking about a real book isn't going to be better. The only hope you have is that somehow the viewers have a connection with that book and just really enjoy them talking about Les Mis. But personally, did nothing for me.
That's a really good point. If the only thing to gain while talking about it is, hey, this is a thing you know, then it's not worth bringing up.
This is just posh name dropping. Anyway, the whole scene is pointless because he's basically, the gist of it is that Eddington isn't going to stop until he gets martyred, which they didn't say because that would have made it too understandable or something. I don't know. And so the solution he comes up with is just to go nuts, which isn't logical. That doesn't follow. I don't see how he got from Eddington will never give up because he's a clever scoundrel to, I know, if I just go nuts and start eradicating Maquis planets, he'll probably give up.
It's quite a leap.
I mean, it's true, yes, if you escalate the situation completely out of control, yes, he will give up. It's just, it would have been nice if there was more of a basis for him to jump to that rather than sort of browsing some Les Mis fanfic and then going, yeah, that's it. Get the quantum torpedoes.
I don't really see how he arrived at that solution while browsing Les Mis.
Yeah, which is why that scene was bad. They should have added something completely different in. They should have had a message from Starfleet saying, catch him no matter the cost, or something like that. Well, maybe not no matter the cost, because that would be a bit ridiculous, but, you know, take measures appropriate to capture him. It's very urgent. Because then you could still have Sisko upping the ante out of control, but you'd have a rough basis for why he was doing it. And it wouldn't just come off like he's gone nuts.
Because we don't have that bridge of how he came to this idea, he does just come off as completely crazy here. I understand that it's a high-risk situation and he has to make choices that are tough and difficult, but man, this one comes out of nowhere.
It's a shame because I think it's just one rewrite off being a fantastic episode. The idea that sometimes you have to do what it takes rather than what you should do is fantastic. In Star Trek especially, because the Federation are the good guys, they're squeaky clean. They're always going to play by the rules. So the fact that he went what was apparently too far, it's a fantastic idea, just it kind of comes out of nowhere and everyone's just a bit shocked, and then at the end they sort of have a laugh about it, like, oh, ha ha ha. Starfleet might be a bit annoyed when they find out I nuked a planet.
Maybe Sisko's leadership is so beyond our understanding that we can't see this course of action as anything but nuts, but it's actually high tier captaining.
I'm not saying it's the wrong solution, it's just a solution that appeared out of nowhere, and because it appeared out of nowhere, that's what makes him seem nuts.
Agreed.
So I guess most of the crew is probably going to be afraid of Sisko from now on.
Cross him and you might be nuked.
Cross him and you'll wake up in the night and he'll be in your quarters, staring at you.
He's not Garrick.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess. Well, he's getting there. Other than the bio-warfare angle, there's a lot of clunky rubbish in this episode. I don't think it was a bad episode. That we're just putting forward a bunch of ideas, a lot of which I don't feel stuck very well.
What were some of those ideas?
Well, there's the Maquis. He has to look at the Maquis. They're living in the cave set. Oh, boo-hoo. In the universe, literally brimming with planets that they could take and live on in a utopian society. They've decided to live in the cave.
I laugh every time I see that cave set now because I imagine you rolling your eyes and loudly groaning.
It's overused. But it's stupid that they're living in a cave. Okay, their house got taken. That's bad. That's terrible. I wouldn't want that to happen to anyone. But within a day, they could have an identical house somewhere else in a paradise, basically. And Eddington's like, oh, but they had roads and also schools. Okay, we'll build some more. It's not hard. You
They're
have
impossible to rebuild.
holodecks and replicators and stuff. You could get this stuff chucked together in an afternoon.
Whenever they do relocation stuff, it always falls flat because of all the things you're saying right now. People can easily relocate and live a life similar to what they had, if not identical.
I'm sure they probably would lose some of their stuff, but it's not like they're going to lose money. They don't have money anymore. their livelihood will still be fine, and their social network will still be largely the same, I imagine. Anyway, then he salts the atmosphere of the planet, and Eddington says, "Oh, look, you made all those refugees into refugees. Now they're gonna have to fly to another planet and live in a cave.
They just got used to this cave.
Now they're gonna miss the first cave and their original house." Just think the Mackie angle is a bit weak. It could have been stronger. But I don't really take them seriously as refugees because of the context of the society they live in.
It's self-inflicted cave living.
I don't know, they could just get a holodeck and live there. The other idea that they threw around in this episode is the holo transmitter,
That really bothered me.
because it was terrible.
Yes. And so they introduce this thing and then use it constantly. I don't know, that bothered me.
It's his new trinket. But yes, it's odd that everyone can use it. Did everyone get them simultaneously, even the Mackie? Communications to the engine room, to engineering rather, were out, so they had to use Nog to communicate. Yet the holo transmitter still can communicate with everyone. Thing's indestructible.
It doesn't make any sense. That thing is way more sophisticated, yet it still works. And simple communications broke down.
Why didn't they use that to talk to engineering? In terms of production, there's a reason they put the holo transmitter in. They were finding it difficult to create tension when large chunks of episodes were done with view screens.
Ah,
So this was their little experiment to make it more personal. However, after you've seen this episode, I'm sure you have an opinion on whether or not this experiment worked.
I do not like it.
That is a common opinion. They thought it was confusing because it looked too much like people beaming in and out. It was much clearer when they're talking to a view screen that they're remote
Yeah.
communicating and so on. Well, we can wait and see if they continue using this gimmick. The clunkiest part is when they turned it off, they pushed a little button,
Yeah.
but you could clearly tell it's just them pretending. Well, I mean, obviously it is, but it looks really bad. Which is silly because they must have been cut out on a green screen, right?
I assume so.
So why not just have a panel there? A green panel that they could press?
Too much work.
It would have at least made the button presses look less awkward.
I would have liked if someone struggled to turn it off. They forgot where the button is. It is new technology after all. They wouldn't be comfortable with where the button is. It wouldn't be muscle memory.
I remember the first time I picked up a smartphone and I spent about 5 minutes thinking, how do you lock this thing? I've seen that people lock them. I was like going through all the menus and stuff. I couldn't figure it out, but obviously it's this button on the side. So yes, new technology. You'd expect them to be like, okay, can you hang up, please?
I am
Cannot
done.
find the button.
Please end this transmission. Thanks. I was surprised they didn't add some kind of filter to them at all. It just looks like they're standing there.
Well, the holodeck is perfect, so if this had a filter, people would have wondered why.
It's not a dedicated room and it's exposed, so it wouldn't be as powerful, maybe?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure there could be reasons. I think even with filters or other effects, it's still too gimmicky and it's too unrelated to how communication works nowadays. Like, in the 90s, it seemed like, oh, video phones will be the next big thing. It's actually kind of gone the opposite way. Quite often you talk to people now, you don't even want to hear the voice or anything, you just some text. Often without even words, just with like a smiling face or something.
The future is emoji.
Well, yeah, communication is most efficient when it's minimal like that.
With this thing, you have to make sure your shirt is tucked in, that your hair is done. That would be awful.
That's probably why video phones never caught on. It's easy to text someone whilst you're on the toilet. They never need to know. There's a large portion of this episode where the Defiant is doing stuff and everyone's working together.
Yes.
It's so good. Cisco is saying stuff to Nog, he's passing it to O'Brien, who's passing out orders, and at the same time Dax is planning stuff and relaying stuff. It's like a proper submarine movie or something. Oh, that's the one part of the episode that I really enjoyed.
I didn't even draw that parallel while watching this, but that's a great way to put it. And all that relaying and constant communication was pretty fun to watch.
I think you have a blind spot for submarine analogies.
I think you're right about that.
You suffer from submarine blindness.
It's a serious affliction.
I'm sorry, man. I hope you can get medical treatment for that. The Badlands look slightly different.
I didn't even notice.
I figured you might not have because, yeah, I think the old effect was computerized, but I think this effect was liquid nitrogen on velvet or something.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's something pretty cool. Because liquid nitrogen is cold. Cool. Never mind. It looked pretty funky, but the Badlands are just where the McKee lives, so it's hard to care, I guess.
I love when they do practical effects. For example, earlier we had the goo.
The goo?
Odo's changeling baby.
Oh, I never mentioned in that episode there's a wonderful practical effect where they smeared goo on someone's hand covered in a stocking. I don't know if they've been trying to save a lot of money in this season by using more practical effects, but for whatever reason they're doing it, it's good. Practical effects look awesome.
Those things always age better and make it easier for people to revisit them or visit them for the first time many years after.
I think there's also a creative part of practical effects that is sort of lost in computer terms. When you're designing computer effects, you can pretty much imagine something and make it more or less exactly that. Practical effects, you are more working with what you have to see what you come up with.
The limitations force you to be more creative. You think, oh, well, I'm going to do this. And then you find out, oh, it only turns this much. So then I have to design around that. And a lot of great things happen because of the restrictions of what you're working with.
I don't know if they had a good idea of what liquid nitrogen on velvet looked like, or if they just thought maybe something like that, tried it and said, whoa, that looks cool. But it's not bounded by their imaginations particularly. You can experiment and see what happens. Computer effects are nice too, though. A lot of the space battles done with computers are pretty sweet.
Right. I'm not trying to knock computer effects entirely, but I do appreciate the practical effects when they show up.
I dream of a world where practical and computer effects can live together in harmony.
Keep dreaming.
So if, instead of talking about Les Mis, the book, they had talked about the musical, and Eddington and Cisco had done a duet, would that have improved this episode?
Yes, tenfold.
Yeah, pretty much. Do you have a quote from Les Mis? From this episode?
I remembered something that Eddington once said to me. The best place to hide something is in plain sight.
Yes, Eddington didn't invent that.
It's so strange that he credits Eddington with that.
Well, it's Odo, and the idea of hiding stuff in plain sight could be exclusive to humans. Although it's such a simple concept that I doubt it would be.
I think the idea is that this is Eddington's guiding philosophy. Let me use this to my advantage. Not so much, oh, this is a great idea that Eddington invented.
Well, there's an entire field of study about it called steganography.
Cisco uses that in this episode. He hides the fact that he's a psychopath in plain sight.
Yeah, I don't know if that was really hiding. So wait, they never check that Eddington left stuff? Because if it was hiding in plain sight, that only works when there's no suspicion. But if Eddington was a known Maquis sympathizer and had access to everything, you'd think they would have gone through everything with a fine-tooth comb.
I guess not.
Well, they mustn't have, because Odo says, yeah, I had a look and I found a bunch of these things.
Yeah. They were all labeled, this is a virus.
Eddington once told me that the best place to hide things is in plain sight because nobody's going to check. The security here is laughable. That was the full quote, of course.
Yeah, they cut that part.
There is no point in putting effort into hiding things. It's completely wasted effort.
When the security is completely inept, it's wasted effort.
Yeah. He probably followed up by saying, I bet you I could place a series of crippling viruses into the system, then join a known terrorist organization.
Oh, you. Saying things that would never happen. No, seriously, I planted several viruses.
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 Just because it came from Latin doesn't mean it's still Latin.
The plural was hiding in plain sight.
Well, we should get into our holo transmitters and beam the next episodes right into our presences.
Sounds good.
Does it sound that good? We could just watch them the old-fashioned way in 2 dimensions.
That sounds even better.
Okay, let's do that one then.
Yeah.